We would be remiss in having this discussion if at some point we didn't discuss monetary policy. Something your dad has become very well known for. I'm not sure the Federal Reserve received a lot of conversation before he started running for president. Not sure that many people actually knew what the Federal Reserve was before he started running for president. But Federal Reserve is an issue, and you talked about some of the banking regulations and the TARP crisis and all of that. Would you, some people want to just eliminate the Federal Reserve, some people want to reform it. In some way, would you eliminate it, or is there a way to reform it?
Well, I think you've got to start somewhere, and I think it's going to have to probably be incremental, but I think the starting point should be auditing the Fed. We ought to at least know what they're doing, and I think there's a strong argument for that. When my dad started the Audit the Fed bill, he had 340 co-sponsors. Every Republican in the House co-sponsored it, and close to 100 Democrats co-sponsored it. In the Senate, we had 37 co-sponsors. When it came forward, they won in the House, they came over, and unfortunately they took away the strong audit and put on a weaker audit. And what eventually got passed, stuck onto Dodd-Frank, was a weak audit of the Fed, a one-time audit. Which one-time audits are good, but you really need recurring audits for any organization. But we did win a small battle on that, and out of that we did discover some things. We discovered that 87 foreign banks got TARP money, that AIG was sort of a shell, and the money was going from the taxpayer to AIG, and AIG was then paying the people they owed money, which many of them were foreign banks. In fact, one of the foreign banks was Gaddafi's central bank. So we're giving him money 1 year, trying to sell him arms 2 years ago, and then he's the greatest dictator in the world that we have to overthrow this year. So it shows you a little bit of the irony to our foreign policy.
Is it realistic to just eliminate the Federal Reserve?
Well, I'd start with auditing it, and then I think maybe a next step would be to try to take some of the power away from it. For example, the Open Market Committee tries to set interest rates, and many from the Free Market School of Economics, the Austrian school, think that when you make interest rates below the market rate, you spur a boom. But inevitably, after the boom comes the bust. The housing crisis was a boom that lasted maybe from 2001 to 2007. Prices were going up 20% a year, maybe 30% a year in places. I had a guy in my neighborhood bought and sold the same house 3 times. He'd move out, sell it for $30,000 more, move somewhere else, come back, buy it again, sell it for $30,000 more. There were people that was their occupation. It was just buying and moving around town and reselling houses. It was an illusion of wealth. But that was created by the Federal Reserve setting interest rates below the market rate. In a true market economy, what happens is if a boom begins, and booms do begin, and let's say there's money to be made in building houses. I'm building them, then you're building them, then your cousin's building them, and then all of a sudden 300 people in your town are building houses. What happens is they're all bidding for money, and the price of money is interest. As you bid for money and more people want to get the money, the interest rate rises, and it serves as a tamponading effect. It's sort of like when you eat a big meal, your blood glucose rises, interest rises, your insulin rises, and then your blood sugar tamponades, and you get what in medicine we call homeostasis, or a maintenance of a balance. It should work that way in the marketplace, but if you keep interest rates at 0 and everybody keeps building, they're all getting the wrong signal. And so the left wing in our country said, oh, these people are greedy and stupid. It's like, well, how did everybody become greedy and stupid at one time? How did they all get a message? It's time to become greedy and stupid.
And they didn't used to be.
Yeah, and it's like I say, well, greedy is if it's your money. If it's my money, that's just self-interest. It's just calling names, and because we don't get to the root of the problem, we don't diagnose it correctly, then their answer is we just need more regulations, because we got to have regulations against greed and against stupidity to protect the people. But in reality, everybody got to, how does a marketplace get so dislocated? It has to be something universal. Interest rates are universal and very important in a housing market or building, and everybody got the wrong signal. There was no signal that we were being overbuilt. The signal was plenty of savings, keep, interest rates are low, keep building houses. But that was the Federal Reserve, so I really do blame the Federal Reserve for the housing boom and the housing bust. So the question is, can you eliminate it? Maybe not, but let's audit it, then let's restrain it and take power away from it. And then maybe we can talk about having some alternatives to it. There have been people who've talked about having competing currencies, having some currencies that would have some backing by a commodity and would have real value, and if the government inflated the currency too much, you could turn your currency in to get that commodity.
So you would support something like some sort of a gold standard?
I think that we need to consider it, and there are more and more people talking about it again.
I just know we did an event with Steve Forbes a couple of weeks ago, and he said, not on behalf of his candidate, but he said, I think we need to get back to gold somehow, some way.
He promotes it a lot. Lou Larriman's another gentleman from New York who promotes it a lot, and is a friend and was on the Gold Commission with my father back in the 80s when Reagan appointed a Gold Commission. You know, we've been losing the value of the dollar for so long, and I think we as Republicans need to explain it better to people, because the loss of the value of dollar hurts the working class the most and senior citizens. They should all be on our side, because the reason we devalue our dollar is to pay for our debt. They print up money to pay for debt. So debt is not good for senior citizens. Debt is not good for the working class. If you're rich, you can afford inflation. You pay for your higher costs out of your excess income. So really, we need to, as Republicans, be better at telling the working class and senior citizens, big government's your enemy. Big government's stealing your savings and sapping your income. And I think if we did so, we could maybe transform the Republican Party into a much bigger party that had much broader appeal.